Hi everyone, my name is Peter Bitts, and I decided to do my topic paper on social media and surveillance. The main things I wanted to look at were the permissions that applications ask for and how much information they really have, but not necessarily just those apps, but their parent companies. And so I really wanted to look into the parent companies because this idea of social media conglomeracy is very interesting to me. And just find out where our information is going, who owns it exactly, because I realize that it's much more than just a colorful icon on our phone, but it has to do with whoever this ominous parent company is that really owns all of our information. And so I dove into that. My main points, the main social media platforms that talked about were Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. There's so much information. Originally I felt like I bit off more than I can chew. What I found with Snapchat is that Snapchat is owned, again, by a parent company, but everything around Snapchat kind of stays to Snapchat. There's just they have access to your precise, like all of these apps have access to your location. And when you think about that, you think, oh, just like, Snap Map or, even Google Maps. But no, like, your location can be accessed, and they have access to even altitude information, so they know what level of a building you're on. And so that just understood. Like, I never knew that, and so finding that out was really eerie. When I looked into Twitter, it works basically like a shell corporation. It's very, very interesting, which I talk about in the paper. But Twitter is owned by a company called Obvious Corporation. And there's information about Obvious Corporation, but Obvious Corp was bought by a company called Sonic Mountain way back in 2007, 2008. There's nothing on the internet about Sonic Mountain besides an SEC. And that's it. And then Twitter also purchased all of these other software developing, video developing agencies. They just bought them out. So instead of outsourcing, they just bought all of those companies. And so that makes sense in a business way, but all of your information and permissions are going to Sonic Mountain, which we have no idea who that is. And so it's kind of, I dive into that, and that's interesting to research and find out. And then finally, I talk about Facebook. Facebook did the same thing, but Facebook owns like big name apps like Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, Oculus. Like Facebook owns all of that. And so the point that I made with Facebook was that, say you don't have any applications beside Instagram, Facebook still gets all of that information because Facebook owns Instagram. So Facebook gets all of the information that you get from any of these apps. Even if you use WhatsApp, which is, in my opinion, after this research, is the safest out of all of them with its encrypted messaging and its very non-invasive permissions, or at least it frames it like that. That information still goes to Facebook because Facebook owns WhatsApp, and so it's this weird, just kind of ricochet of these companies' information going back to the parent companies. Facebook being the most notorious of it all. And near the end of the paper, I compare Facebook to the NSA in a very brief fashion because they both have a wealth of information, and we don't know exactly what they do with it. But another thing I talk about is just how at least with Android, I've heard mixed stories when it comes to Apple products, but with Android, when you download an app, it automatically says that the app has permission to access your location even if the app is closed. And that being the case, like, you have to go into your settings and disable that. But it's just, and from the moment you download the app to when you disable that feature, the application and its owners have access to your precise location at all times. It's very much like the Andrejevic article that we read earlier in the quarter, where it just talks about how the trade-off is really either you choose to submit to all of the surveillance that these social media platforms are doing, or not use the application at all, because these are private companies. These are private things. Like, the owner gets to decide what the users do because it's their company. So you either choose not to use the app, or you choose to sacrifice all of your privacy. Like, these applications have access to your location, your phone, your texts, everything you've ever typed in some cases. They have access to all of your online profiles. They have access to your web history. Like, they have access to everything, and they have all that information. So it's very scary, the level of information these applications have on you, and that it's not just, you know, these pretty icons, but that it is the parent company that has all this information. It's the person behind that parent company that has all this information. And after doing this research, I know that there's a problem with how much information about us is out there and what these applications are asking for, but I don't know what to do about it. And so if I had more time, then I would find ways of looking more into the parent companies that I found, and researching ways that we can still use these social media apps while not divulging everything about our lives to them, if that's even a possibility. I barely was chipping the tip of the iceberg with Twitter, but what I found is that Twitter has ties to Google and to Square, and there's just a lot of trading of information and a lot of inside work, and so I would definitely look more into that as well. But what I found gave me a really solid base to at least have discussion about these kinds of things, and it's also a bit frightening when it comes to how much information these applications have. And so we really have to start asking ourselves the question, is it worth it to have all of this information about us known, just for the sake of connecting socially? Or are we going to trust these shady parent companies to do what's right with our information, or do we even care? Because everything about us is out there, so do we even care? And so that's really what I talk about in this paper, and it's very interesting. So excited to see what you have to say about it.